My name is Guvvy Sandu. I'm a corporate lawyer and I have helped business owners and entrepreneurs buy and sell businesses for almost 15 years. Due diligence is an investigation into the company we'd like to buy. After we have been given the keys to the kingdom, it is always harder and frankly more costly in terms of time and money to be asking for some of that deal money back from sellers. So due diligence is designed to make sure that the company we're buying is what we think it is. The first slide talks about seller and target company. Who owns those shares? Are we speaking with the right people? Okay. And then we talk, and this is where it gets a little bit boring, is who owns the legal part to those shares? And are those shares held for someone else's benefit? In legal terms, is there a separation between legal owner and beneficial owner? If the seller is a company, can the seller sell the company we are going to buy? Or does it have to fulfill certain obligations in the Articles of Association? Next question, of course, is, well, Guvvy, and I may well be singing to the choir here, but what are Articles of Association? In this most simplistic term, it's the internal contract of the company and how it has to behave. Okay. The third bullet point, not so important, but it's one for us to check. Is there a shareholders agreement in place that regulates the relationship between the sellers, and how is that looked after? The key part of that is we should be asking for what's called a deed of termination to make sure that that agreement terminates as soon as we own that company. Corporate and commercial agreements. And the key bullet point on this is, who are the major customers? And why is that important, Guvvy? Because that is designed to guard against over concentration. Are we doing 60, 70, 80, 90% of our business with one customer? And if so, what are the terms of that relationship? What are the target company standard terms and conditions of sale? So how do we generally do business? Is there a written agreement in place? That would be ideal, but sometimes there isn't. And if there isn't a written agreement in place, can we point to something or a set of email or a chain of correspondence that sets out how we do business with our customers or even suppliers? Business assets. Now, it's very much contingent upon what we are buying. So we must always bear in mind, what are we buying? Because the questions we ask on an acquisition should not be so standard. They should be, well, we're buying this company and this is what it does. So these are the questions we should be asking. Second bullet point, is a stock on the balance sheet what we think is in the warehouse? So do we need to do a stock take? Do we need to, a day before completion, go to the warehouse and make sure the values of that stock are correct? Intellectual property. Now, this is very, very important. First question is, are the service marks, the trademarks, the design rights, are they integral to the company we're buying? So the question is, do we get any business as a result of what's in place in terms of intellectual property? Who put that design mark, design right, service mark in place? Generally speaking, if it was an employee that did that in the course of their employment, then that intellectual property automatically belongs to the company. But we need to be very sure that any outsourcing agreement or any arrangement that was put in place for that intellectual property has transferred that service mark, design right, brand back into the company. Computer system and data, equally as important as intellectual property, if not more important, because so the company that we're buying, what software do we use? Is it simply, Mozilla, Microsoft Office? Is it open source? Are we entitled to use it? And have we complied with any data protection legislation? Now, data protection and GDPR, quite frankly, can be the source of another topic. But again, the point is we must be asking the right questions in the context of the company that we're buying. Real estate and property. Well, the question here is, do we as buyers expect to be able to trade from the property that has historically been on the balance sheet of the company we're buying? And some of the answers might be, Guvvy, frankly, we don't need that property. We are taking the trading base out and moving it somewhere else. so the sellers are quite free and open to take the property, we don't want it? Or do we need it leased back to us? Or thirdly, are we prepared to allow the sellers to extract the freehold? And what I mean by that is, have we priced that into our transaction planning? Insurance. And again, at the risk of repeating myself, the first question is, what are we buying? And that flows into every other question we may well have, because if you're buying a law firm, if you're buying an architect's practice, one of the key insurances will be professional indemnity insurance. Is it in place? What is the excess? And have there been any claims against those policies? Consents and compliance. This is fairly straightforward. Again, what are we buying and what do we need to run that business after sale? So do we need a specific license? Do we need it to make sure our ISO accreditation remains in place? So straightforward, but we need to determine the licenses that are required. A second ago, I talked about litigation and disputes. Are there any existing claims, or is something boiling away in the background? And again, just because there may well be a claim doesn't mean that there's a problem. So an open question to the sellers: we think this is a risk. Can you please give us more information so we can determine the value of the risk and whether or not we need to have a different conversation? Employees, very hot topic, as I'm sure all of you know. Your sellers may well say to us, Guvvy, these 5 individuals are contractors. And our question then is, okay, we need to determine, and again, IR35 being a very hot topic, we need to ask the right questions to work out whether they are in fact contractors, workers, or employees. So are they on the payroll? Are we accounting to the revenue for any potential tax on their remuneration? How often do they come to the office? Do we give them, a 9 to 5 start and an hour for lunch? So again, right questions, get some more answers, and we can work out the risk of what we're trying to do and how we can guard against it.